Thank you for visiting my channel, Thinking Like a Virtuous Woman, where I inspire women to think like the woman in Proverbs 31, spiritually, financially, and relationally. So today, I wanted to talk about the fact that porn addicts, they never get enough. And what sparked me to want to make this quick video was because I was watching the story of a lady who shared that she had gone through a divorce with her husband, and one of the first red flags she found was that he was addicted to porn. And this was before they got married. Fast forward, they got married, and he ended up cheating on her with numerous women. Now, there were people basically like kind of chiming in and saying that having a porn addiction is not necessarily cheating, because she did admit that she did feel cheated on, by the porn. But of course, like I said, they still got married. Now, I want to share my experience with being with two men in the past who were addicted to porn. Now, just a little bit about me. I had shared some of my story here. I have been abstinent for 10 years, but I have come from a childhood of molestation, which caused me to be a hypersexual child. And I ended up being a hypersexual adult, and I dealt with sexual addiction. So I know what it's like to deal with an addiction, but I'm glad to say that I've never had a porn addiction. So I am not speaking from experience of having a porn addiction, but from the experience of dealing with two men in my past who had a porn addiction. So the first person that I dealt with who had a porn addiction was he was somebody that I knew a long time. I knew him as a kid, and you know how you have those childhood boyfriends and you just kind of like each other, and then you know how that goes. But we kept in touch. So over the years, he would be my boyfriend. We were teenagers. He would be my boyfriend. We became adults, and and all of that. But I remember us being kids. I'm talking about like 11, 12 years old. And I remember him watching porn. Of course, back then I wasn't thinking nothing of it. I was just like, ooh. But I remember him watching it even back then. Fast forward to becoming adults, he was still like constantly watching it. And I'm not talking about just watching it. I mean like addicted to it. Now, without getting into much details, one of the reasons why we did not work out, and this was way before I was abstinent. This was, of course, when I was still out there. But one of the reasons why our relationship did not work out was because of we were not sexually compatible, in the sense that he was so addicted to porn that he would only stay aroused if it was done a certain kind of way, like they did it in the porns, right? And like I said, I don't want to get into any too much into detail, but because he had been watching it for so long, in his mind, what he saw is what sex was. And this is me looking back now. I did not really necessarily think about it in the moment. I think I kind of thought about it, but this is me now, older, and looking back and realizing that it was almost as if anything else was not, did not feel good to him, was not arousing to him. It had to be a certain way. And that was actually like probably one of the main reasons why we did not work out. We were good friends. Like I said, I had known him since I was a kid. We loved each other. We liked each other. We laughed a lot. We were very much alike in a lot of ways. But it was really that, like, we just could not get on the same page. And it was just like, listen, that is not love. That is not so that, okay. Fast forward to years later, I was with someone who would watch it. Now, this was somebody I didn't know he had an addiction. I'm gonna tell you how I realized he had an addiction. Now, I knew he, I don't even want to get into too much detail, but long story short, we were together, and we had been together that night. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and I remember he was sitting on the side of the bed watching some porn and masturbating. And I was like, wow. It was literally in that moment that I realized he had an addiction. And what I realized is that nothing is never enough for him, and I will never be enough. And it made me realize how I would hear some women, like even like the young lady I heard talk about how she felt cheated on when her husband was watching porn. And it made me realize that when these women are sharing that, it made me understand, because although that guy wasn't my husband, like I can't imagine being married to a man and I feel like I'm not enough. Like that has to be hurtful. So when people say, oh, watching porn is not cheating, or, even though technically it's not, it does feel like it, or it can feel like it to a woman. if she feels like she's not enough, especially when you were already getting it a lot and it still wasn't enough. That's how you know. I don't know. It's like that spirit of lust just never gets enough. Like it's like one woman will never be enough. There is no amount of sex in the world that can be enough. And the fact that you are regularly, getting it, and then you still have to go and masturbate regularly, that just showed me I would never be enough. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that because, there may be a young woman or just a woman in general out there who maybe, you met a guy and maybe he admitted he has porn, or maybe you just realize your boyfriend has a porn addiction and, you're thinking you're going to be able to sex it away. It's a person has to want the help. First of all, they have to realize that they have an addiction, and then they have to want the help. So if you're wondering like whether you should be with a man with a porn addiction or not, like he would have to be literally like in therapy about it. He would literally have to be taking whatever measures he has to take to rid himself of it. Like they have accountability apps. Like there was just something I heard this one story of this guy. He shared how he overcame porn. It was like some app or something that didn't allow him to visit certain apps, or his brother would get a notification. Like his brother was his accountability partner. So stuff like that, like he would have to be making, drastic changes and have an accountability partner, be in therapy or something for me to even think about giving a man a chance who has this addiction. And that's not to say that, anybody can't change, because of course they can. I shared with you my story. Thank God. I praise God for transformation. So I know if I can change, I know anybody can. However, they have to want it, and they have to already be, in the process of trying to overcome that addiction, because any addiction is hard to overcome, but it starts with recognizing you have it. And then you have to do the necessary work to overcome it. Getting married is not a cure for promiscuity. Getting married is not a cure for sexual addiction, and it's not a cure for porn addiction. You have to take the necessary steps to overcome it. So, like I said, I just wanted to share that. Feel free to chime in below if you have any experience with that, whether you were the one addicted or you knew somebody who was. Feel free to leave any video suggestions, prayer requests, or any of that in the comments. And I thank you again for visiting my channel. Be blessed.